I need to tell you something that happened 2 nights ago, and I know it sounds completely impossible. I've been sitting here in my hotel room trying to find the words to explain what I experienced, and honestly, I'm still shaking. 2 days ago, on October 5th, I had an encounter that has left me spiritually shattered in ways I never imagined possible. Jesus Christ appeared to me and revealed 5 specific events that will unfold during this month of October 2025. What he showed me wasn't just about the future. It was an urgent warning about supernatural occurrences that will shake everything we think we understand about the world we're living in. My hands haven't stopped trembling since that night. I've gone back and forth 100 times about whether I should even record this message because I know exactly how this will sound to most people. But the thing is, what I witnessed wasn't meant only for me. It was meant for you, wherever you are right now, whatever time it is where you're listening. Before I go any further, drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from and what the local time is. I just need to know I'm not alone in this. If what you're about to hear moves something in your spirit, please hit that subscribe button. Your support gives me the strength to speak these truths, even when every rational part of my brain is screaming at me to stay silent. For those who don't know me, my name is Jonathan Roumie. For the past 6 years, I've had the extraordinary privilege of portraying Jesus Christ in The Chosen. You might think that spending years studying the scriptures, embodying the mannerisms and teachings of Christ, and diving deep into his character would somehow prepare me for a genuine supernatural encounter. But nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing, could have prepared me for what happened 2 nights ago in my hotel room in Malta. We had just wrapped up an exhausting 16-hour filming session. The entire cast and crew were drained, but there's a particular kind of exhaustion that comes with this role that I can't fully explain to anyone who hasn't experienced it. Playing Jesus isn't just acting, it's spiritual warfare. Every single day I feel the weight of carrying something far greater than myself. Some mornings I wake up and genuinely question whether I'm worthy enough to even put on the costume. The responsibility crushes me in ways that are difficult to articulate. That night, October 5th, I returned to my room around midnight. My body was exhausted, but my mind wouldn't shut off. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring out the window at the Mediterranean waters reflecting moonlight, and I felt this profound emptiness inside. The day had been particularly intense. We'd been filming some of the most emotionally demanding scenes of the entire series, and I felt completely hollowed out. Then something happened that changed everything. The temperature in the room dropped so suddenly and dramatically that I could see my breath forming clouds in the air. This wasn't the air conditioning kicking in. This was something else entirely. The atmosphere itself seemed to shift, becoming thick with a presence that I can only describe as overwhelming holiness. When I looked up from where I was sitting, Jesus was standing there. Not the version of Jesus that I portray on screen. Not some figment of my imagination or the result of exhaustion playing tricks on my mind. This was the risen Christ, radiating a presence so powerful and so filled with love that my legs gave out and I collapsed to the floor. His appearance was both familiar and completely otherworldly. He was taller than I had imagined, with eyes that seemed to contain the entire universe within them. When he looked at me, I felt completely exposed, as if every secret, every doubt, every hidden part of my soul was visible to him. Yet somehow, despite being utterly laid bare before him, I felt more loved than I've ever felt in my entire life. His voice, when he spoke my name, carried a weight that seemed to resonate in my chest. It was both gentle and filled with absolute authority. "Jonathan," he said, and immediately I was face down on the floor, tears streaming down my face uncontrollably. "Rise, my beloved," he continued. "I have chosen you to deliver a message that must reach my people before this month ends." I tried to speak, to tell him that I was just an actor, that I wasn't qualified to receive prophetic visions or deliver messages from heaven. But he smiled, and that smile was like watching the sun rise after the darkest night imaginable. "Worthiness was never the requirement," he said, "faithfulness is." As I struggled to stand, still trembling from head to toe, Jesus began to speak with an urgency that made my heart race. "What I am about to show you will challenge everything people believe about how I work in the world," he said. 5 events will unfold before this month ends. Each one serves as both a warning and an invitation. The first will manifest in just 4 days from now. Suddenly, the hotel room around us seemed to dissolve, and I found myself standing in what I can only describe as a spiritual observation point, looking down upon the earth from a perspective that transcended normal physical sight. But this wasn't the earth as we see it in photographs from space. This was the earth as God sees it, with every prayer rising like streams of golden light and every act of rebellion casting dark shadows across the landscape. "Look toward the ancient lands," Jesus said, and somehow I knew he was directing my attention toward the Middle East. On October 11th, my people will discover something that has been hidden beneath Jerusalem for nearly 2,000 years. The vision that unfolded before me was so vivid, so detailed, that I could have been watching it happen in real time. I watched as a team of archaeologists working near the Temple Mount made a discovery that would send shockwaves through the academic and religious world. Deep beneath layers of earth and centuries of accumulated rubble, they uncovered a sealed chamber that had remained untouched since the 1st century. Inside this hidden chamber were artifacts that defied explanation. Jesus showed me scrolls bearing official Roman seals, documents that corroborated the gospel accounts with stunning precision. There were personal belongings of the disciples, items that carried a residual spiritual power even after 2 millennia. Most remarkably, there were fragments of wood that still emanated supernatural energy, pieces that would cause inexplicable healings just from proximity. "This discovery will divide the world into 2 camps," Jesus explained, his expression showing both joy and sorrow. "Those whose hearts are prepared will fall on their knees in worship when they see the evidence, but others, especially those who profit from keeping people away from truth, will rage with unprecedented fury." I watched as the vision showed me how this discovery would unfold. News networks would scramble to cover the story. Social media would explode with debates and arguments. Scientists and theologians would find themselves in heated discussions. But what struck me most was how this revelation would force people to make a choice. The evidence would be so compelling, so undeniable, that remaining neutral would become impossible. As this first vision began to fade, I felt the weight of what I was witnessing settling deep into my spirit. But Jesus wasn't finished. His expression grew more serious as he prepared to reveal the second event. "What comes next will be painful to witness," he said, and I could hear the sorrow in his voice. "Between October 13th and October 18th, I will allow a great shaking to come upon those who claim to represent me." The spiritual observation point around us shifted, and suddenly I was looking down at churches and ministries scattered across every continent. What I witnessed in those moments broke my heart and filled me with a righteous anger that I didn't know I was capable of feeling. I watched as prominent religious leaders, pastors of massive congregations, and televangelists who had built empires on false promises were about to face divine exposure. Financial crimes that had been carefully hidden for decades would suddenly come to light. Moral failures that had been covered up by layers of deception would be revealed in rapid succession. Doctrinal heresies that had led millions astray would be exposed for what they truly were. "This is not punishment," Jesus said, sensing the distress that was overwhelming me. "This is purification. My house must be cleansed before the final harvest can begin." I saw pastors being arrested as their schemes finally caught up with them. Massive church organizations were splitting apart as congregations discovered their leaders had been teaching prosperity instead of truth, success instead of sacrifice, comfort instead of the cross. The scale of the deception was staggering, but amid all this chaos and exposure, something beautiful was emerging that gave me hope. Small groups of genuine believers, hungry for authentic relationship with God, began gathering in homes and parks and community centers. These people weren't discouraged by the exposure of false shepherds. Instead, they seemed energized, finally free to pursue the real Jesus, without the distraction of corrupt leadership standing in their way. The vision showed me how this purification would create space for something authentic to emerge. As the false fell away, the true began to shine brighter than ever before. Believers who had been sitting passively in pews for years, consuming religious entertainment without ever truly encountering God, suddenly became active participants in kingdom work. They started praying with intensity they'd never known. They began serving their communities with genuine love instead of religious obligation. "Those who survive this shaking," Jesus said with an expression of divine pride, "will be the ones I use in the days ahead." They will be purified gold, refined by fire, ready to carry the weight of supernatural authority. As the second vision concluded, I could sense that something even more extraordinary was about to be revealed. The atmosphere around us began to crackle with an energy that made every hair on my body stand on end. Jesus looked at me with an intensity that made my spirit tremble with both excitement and holy fear. "The third event," he said, his voice carrying a power that seemed to shake reality itself, "will affect every single person on earth, believer and unbeliever alike. It will be a sign in the heavens that no one can ignore, explain away, or dismiss as mere coincidence." The spiritual observation point expanded dramatically around us, giving me a panoramic view of the entire solar system. My breath caught in my throat as I witnessed something approaching from the depths of space that defied every law of physics I thought I understood. On October 21st, Jesus continued, his voice resonating with cosmic authority. "A messenger of light will position itself between your planet and the moon for exactly 49 minutes. This celestial visitor carries within it the very breath of heaven itself." What I saw approaching wasn't a comet or an asteroid or any natural celestial body. This was something composed entirely of brilliant white light moving with clear intelligence and purpose toward our planet. As it drew closer, I could see that it pulsed with a rhythm that seemed to match the heartbeat of creation itself. During these 49 minutes, Jesus explained, the spiritual atmosphere surrounding the earth will be charged with supernatural power, unlike anything experienced since Pentecost. The barrier between the physical and spiritual realms will become so thin that even children will begin to see angels walking among them. The vision unfolded with breathtaking clarity before my eyes. I watched as the celestial messenger took its position, and immediately the effects on earth were profound and unmistakable. People across every continent began experiencing supernatural encounters simultaneously. In hospitals, terminally ill patients were receiving instantaneous healings that left doctors speechless. In prisons, hardened criminals fell to their knees as divine love penetrated hearts that had been closed for decades. But what struck me most powerfully was how this event affected the children. I witnessed young ones across the globe suddenly demonstrating gifts of prophecy, healing, and spiritual discernment that amazed their parents and teachers. A young girl in South America laid hands on her blind grandmother and watched as sight returned to eyes that hadn't seen in 20 years. Twin boys in West Africa began speaking in languages they'd never learned, delivering messages of comfort to grieving families in their communities. "The innocent and pure in heart will be the first to receive these gifts," Jesus said with overwhelming joy radiating from his face. "Their faith, untainted by doubt and religious tradition, creates perfect vessels for my power to flow through without hindrance." However, not everyone responded positively to this supernatural visitation. I observed that those who had deliberately hardened their hearts against God experienced intense discomfort during these 49 minutes. Some became violently ill without any medical explanation. Others flew into inexplicable rage, lashing out at those around them. Many simply fled to dark places, desperately trying to escape the penetrating light that seemed to expose everything they'd been hiding. "This celestial sign will serve as my final invitation," Jesus continued, his voice carrying both love and urgency. "Those who open their hearts during this visitation will receive an impartation of spiritual gifts that will equip them for what comes next. But those who reject this offering will find their hearts growing even harder than before." As the third vision began to fade, I felt my consciousness straining under the weight of these revelations. The sheer magnitude of what I was witnessing threatened to overwhelm my ability to process it all. But Jesus placed his hand on my shoulder, and immediately strength flowed through my entire being like electricity. "There are 2 more events you must witness," he said, and his tone carried an urgency that commanded my complete attention. "The 4th occurrence will test the faith of even my most devoted followers." The spiritual realm around us transformed once more, and I found myself standing on what appeared to be the highest mountain imaginable, with a view that encompassed the entire globe. But this wasn't merely a physical perspective. I could somehow see into the hearts and souls of people across every nation, every culture, every walk of life. Beginning October 24th, Jesus began, his voice taking on a quality that seemed to vibrate through my very bones. "A great deception will be released upon the earth. The enemy knows his time is short, and he will deploy his most convincing lies to lead astray even those who think their faith is unshakable." What I witnessed next terrified me more than anything I'd seen so far. Across the world, false prophets began performing signs and wonders that looked absolutely authentic. They healed the sick, they spoke prophecies that seemed to come true, they performed miracles that left crowds amazed. But there was something subtly wrong about all of it, something that twisted the glory away from God and toward the messenger instead. These deceivers will arise within my church and outside of it, Jesus explained with deep sadness. They will speak eloquently about love and unity and peace. They will promise solutions to humanity's greatest problems, but their message will always lead people away from the narrow path and toward the broad road of destruction. I watched as entire congregations were led astray by charismatic leaders who mixed just enough truth with their lies to make the deception palatable. I saw believers with years of faithful service suddenly abandoning sound doctrine for teachings that tickled their ears and made them feel good about themselves without requiring genuine transformation. The speed at which this deception spread was alarming. Social media amplified these false messages, algorithms pushing content that confirmed people's biases rather than challenging them with truth. My true followers will know my voice, Jesus assured me, but his expression remained grave. When people have genuine encounters with me, they become broken over their sin, humble in spirit, filled with supernatural love for others, and desperate to share my gospel. Any experience that produces pride, division, or draws attention to the messenger rather than to me does not come from heaven. The fifth and final event Jesus revealed to me carries implications that extend beyond anything I could have imagined. As the fourth vision faded, I felt the weight of everything I'd witnessed pressing down on my chest like a physical force. But Jesus looked at me with eyes that held both infinite compassion and unwavering resolve, and I knew there was one more revelation I needed to receive. "What I am about to show you," he said, his voice resonating with an authority that made the air around us shimmer, "will be the culmination of everything that has come before." On October 28th, a global awakening will begin that will spread like wildfire across every nation on earth. The spiritual observation point shifted once again, and suddenly I could see the entire planet laid out before me in stunning detail. But what captured my attention wasn't the physical geography. It was the spiritual landscape that became visible, showing me the true state of human hearts across the globe. "I am going to visit individuals personally," Jesus continued, "not through intermediaries or messengers, but face to face in ways that cannot be explained away or dismissed as imagination." What unfolded before me in that moment challenged everything I thought I knew about how God moves in the modern world. I watched as ordinary people in every corner of the earth began receiving supernatural encounters with the risen Christ. These weren't mass gatherings or public spectacles. They were intimate, personal meetings happening in the privacy of homes, in workplaces, even in the most unexpected locations imaginable. I saw a businessman in Cairo sitting alone in his office late at night, when suddenly the room filled with a presence so powerful that he fell to his knees weeping. Jesus appeared to him with such overwhelming love that years of religious tradition melted away in an instant, and he understood for the first time what it meant to be truly known and loved by God. In Tokyo, a scientist working in her laboratory was confronted by the living Christ in a way that shattered every rational explanation she'd built her life upon. The encounter was so undeniably real that she abandoned her research mid-experiment and began crying out for forgiveness right there among her test tubes and microscopes. I've shared what Jesus revealed to me about these 5 events coming this month. The archaeological discovery on October 11th, the church purification between October 13th and 18th, the celestial messenger on October 21st, the great deception beginning October 24th, and the global visitation starting October 28th. Whether you believe my testimony or not, I'm urging you to watch and pray. Prepare your hearts for what's unfolding. Share this message with someone who needs to hear it, because time is running out and eternity hangs in the balance. From the depths of our souls, thank you for joining us through this powerful testimony. If you've made it this far, something has stirred your heart. We warmly invite you to take a small but meaningful step. Drop a comment below to share where you're watching from, so we can lift your nation in prayer. If you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell to stay connected with the profound insights we share daily. Above all, please share this video with at least 3 people dear to you, friends, loved ones, or fellow believers. One simple share could spark a transformation, restore faith, or draw a soul closer to God. May the Lord guide and bless you always.